Welcome friends to our DRA2 K-3 Helper Handbook session. I am not going to go through the handbook completely. I'm going to hit upon some main points so that we're all kind of in sync across the district with our DRA2. You should have printed off this DRA2 Helper Handbook for your grade level. If you didn't, go ahead and hit pause and do that so that you have access to it as I go through it. Okay, you should have your handbook, and also I had attached Preparing for the Administration of DRA2, and this is a way to help you keep organized prior to testing to see what I need to pull, what I need to look at, what I need to copy and prepare for. So this is a great guide just to keep you organized for the test. So let's go ahead and start with our Helper Handbook and open up to page 2. A few things on page 2 I wanted to go over is that our goal for DRA2 is to find their independent level. There will be instances when we need to mark instructional, but I'd say 98% of the time we will be finding their independent level, so keep that in mind. Also, remember there are 3 parts to the test, and the 2 parts of the test that can make or break the test are the oral reading or oral reading fluency section, or the printed language / comprehension section. The very first section, the reading engagement, will not make or break the test. It just gives you an idea of what they're reading and who's reading to them and what kind of genres they've been exposed to. So keep that in mind. Also, keep in mind if there's a 504 plan or IEP written to follow those specifications when giving the test. And also, at levels 28 and above, you will have access to the Prepare students for the DRA2 levels 28 and above, a great booklet to do with your kids prior to testing. You're allowed to do that. It is part of the DRA2 booklet test, so you can tap into some of the different skills they might be asked to perform on the test just to give them a little brush up. Also included in the front is the My Book Log. I'd say from day 1, starting in 3rd grade, maybe towards the end of 2nd grade, start keeping a book log so that they can use this in reference when taking the test, the part of the test that's the reading engagement. So if you do not have this, just let me know and I'll print one for you. Many of these have been in resource rooms in different places. I'm sure you'd have access to them. If not, just let me know. So let's go ahead and go to page 3. A few things on this page. On page 3, you know that the first part of the test is the reading engagement. Remember, most of your reading engagement for your lower grades is just a discussion between the teacher and the student to get a feel of what genres they've been introduced to, who's reading to them at home, what exposure they've had. Starting at level 28, they'll fill out the reading survey using their reading log, so keep that in mind. And again, this section does not make or break the test. The next 2 sections do, so keep that in mind. Also, on page 4, if you'd like to turn, you are going to have to choose a text that will work with the student for the test. And the best way to do that is to get out their DRA folder from the CUME file to see where they ended up last year or at the previous testing session and think to yourself, where might they fall now? But keep in mind, and the early stages of emerging early and transitional stages, students lose a ton of momentum over the summer if they've not been worked with directly concerning reading. So keep in mind, if they had a certain score at the end of, say, 1st grade, and they go to 2nd grade, you may see them a couple levels below what they ended up at the last year if they've not been worked with. So remember, summer regression is a major factor in our early stages. Also, keep in mind that the DRA2 book has, or this chart here will give you a quick guide to where you might place your students. Okay, the next part of the test is the oral reading fluency, and this is when either they're going to be timed or they're going to retell the story to you and you underline sections on the test. Just depends on which level that they're at. And also, when a student pauses when they're being timed, remember to give them only 3 seconds. When they start to stumble and try to decode it, you give a 3-second count or count in your head for 3 seconds, then give them the words so you can keep moving on so that you do not run out of time on the timer. On page 5, let's go to that. Remember, at the top it mentions gray area. If a student falls in the gray area on the test when you're analyzing it, on the teacher observation guide, you know if they fall in this gray area, you will have to go to a lower text. Okay, so keep that in mind when they're retelling the story or when they're being timed. If it's a gray area, you need to go to a lower text. So keep that in mind. As for the third part, which is the comprehension part of the test, you need to know that the Blackline Master Book offers many suggestions. If you're not for sure on the continuum, to give them a 1, 2, 3, or 4, starting on page 88 and the Blackline Master Book, and also on page 80, I'd say starting about page 80, it'll give you examples so that you think to yourself, that'd be maybe a 2, 3, or 4 on the test. So there are examples to help you through. When you're giving the comprehension part, the teacher, if they're retelling, you underline what the student is saying. Yes, they may not say the exact words. Underline what's close to what they're saying. And another thing, the questions that you ask, only use the prompts that you're allowed to ask. And Mona, I don't see a red light on.
You're recording.
I'm recording. Okay, I just had to throw that in there. Okay. Because I thought we will not want to do this again. So anyway, make sure you keep in mind they can say very close to what they are retelling the story. Underline, it does not need to be exact. And also keep in mind that students reading text levels 28 and above are not reassessed with the lower text if they fall at instructional on comprehension. Make sure you read the guidelines so that you know that this is the point for this is if a student cannot metacognate or summarize or reflect, unless they've had instruction on that, they will not be able to do that in a lower level text. So make sure you read the fine print at the bottom of page 5. Let's go on to page 6. This is where we analyze student performance. We analyze student performance so that we can work with differentiated instruction and our grouping. The continuum is what we fill out for each test. The continuum at the end, they're part of all the different levels that are available, and you give them a score. This score then is transferred over to the class profile, and there are different profiles depending on what stage they're at, and the profile shows you what your whole class is doing per what your continuum said. This information tells you how to spin your grouping, how to group your students, what might be most effective. So this is your information for your analysis to determine how you need to move forward with your data. Let's go ahead, page 7. The class profile, I just mentioned that. Make sure that you do a class profile to organize your grouping. And further assessment for below level students. If you have a student that is below all these levels, you can look at a level A1 test or the word analysis test. So we do have other tests available for students that are at a very low emerging level that we can look at. As for word analysis, I know that our K-3 buildings are talking about giving the word analysis to all of our students that fall at a level tier 2, 3 in RTI. So word analysis is something we're going to probably have to brush up on, and we'll have another helper video on that as well coming out soon. Turn to page 8. It goes over word analysis. I'm not going to get into that right now until I send out a helper video on that. In the middle of page 8, it points out testing above grade level. Remember, teachers are not to test above grade level more than 1 year, and the only time testing above grade level would happen or is appropriate if a student gets all 4 on the DRA2 continuum for his grade level. The exception is in first grade if the student scores all 4s and 3s in the area of reflection or making connections, you can move to a higher level. Make sure you read the print and use this as a resource when you think to yourself, can I test this student at a higher level? You need to make sure that you're following the guidelines before you go above grade level. Remember, the point of DRA2 is to take their learning deeper and wider, not higher and higher. This is not to see where you can max them out. It's to see where they show gaps and how we can help them. If you turn to page 9, it really kind of goes over the end of year goals. Kindergarten, we're looking at 3-4. First grade nonfiction at 6th grade nonfiction at 16. Second grade, we're looking at nonfiction at 28, and third grade nonfiction at 38. If they fell in a fiction text, we would still consider them at grade level. We're shooting for nonfiction. Documenting change over time. Make sure that you keep information in the DRA2 folder. Make sure that you can add any anecdotal notes or information so that the next year teacher knows exactly where to start from, how the student performs. So keep your data in the folder and it travels from year to year. Also, when all of your data has been collected, I will be sending through an attachment the principal's reporting form. You fill out all your classroom information. You can take it, save it as a Word document, and just type it in each time and then send it to your principal, and then it gets passed to me so that I can look at percentages as well. So that will be sent out to you. Remember to use your benchmark guidelines as a reminder as to what is considered independent at each grade level. This is something that you've had access to. If you need more information on it, I can shoot you it via email. So make sure that you are following the guidelines. Final thoughts, make sure you're following test instructions. Don't go outside of what the tests say specifically. Don't take it upon yourself to give them more information than what they need or less. Follow the guidelines. Remember, we're looking for their independent level. That is our goal. If it needs to be at instructional level per certain IEP, or if they're an extremely slow reader and they're going to be slow on every text you go below, you've got to write those anecdotal notes so that the teacher next year understands that, and so that other teams that get together understand that, and they must be marked as instructional on the reporting forms, not independent, if that's how they fall. Be aware of summer regression. You will, when you start testing, think, why did they lose so many levels? It is the nature of the beast when they're at the emerging, early, and transitional stages. And I want to thank you for your time, and I appreciate everyone tuning in. Use your helper handbook as your resource. And I think most principals will have you email them once you view the video so that they can mark off for accountability. And I thank you for your time. If you have specific questions, just email me. Thank you.